My mother was a working mom when most mothers were stay-at-home moms. I didn't mind the situation too much, except on Saturdays. Since my mom did not work on Saturdays, she would do the laundry, and it was my responsibility to do the ironing. So when my friends were at the movies or at the bowling alley, I was at the ironing board.
Growing up was hard. You had to belong to a group. Either you were a jock, doper, socialite, one of the cool kids, or you were a nerd. I wasn't any of those.
I can remember standing on my tippy toes trying to look at the perfume bottles on my mother's dresser. I liked the way she arranged them so carefully on her dresser.
I never liked team sports, probably because I just wasn't good at it. I was always the bench warmer, or playing some obscure position that involved standing out in the middle of a field, where I could do the least amount of damage.
I was very successful in school, but somewhere along the way I learned that it would be wrong to let a boy suspect that I might be smarter than he was. In other words, I learned to play dumb.
I had a G.I. Joe action figure when I was a kid. It wasn't a doll, it was an action figure.
I did not like playing with dolls very much. I don't know why, but I did not like playing with dolls very much. When my girlfriends insisted on playing with dolls, I just watched them, bewildered.
When I was young, long hair was very popular. It was the age of Woodstock. Many of my friends had long hair, but I never did. In my family, that just wasn't done. Women had long hair, and men had short hair. That's just the way it was.
When I was a young girl, ponytails were very popular, and I wore one. I can remember that I enjoyed turning my head very quickly, because doing so would cause the ponytail to fly through the air and then snap back into place. Somehow this was a very gratifying sensation, and it made me feel very, very feminine. Even though I was to a certain extent a bit of a tomboy, there were certain things about being a girl that I liked very much, and this ponytail ritual was one of them. I also found that it was exciting to fix my ponytail while a boy was watching me. First, I would pull off the rubber band holding the ponytail in place. This had to be done carefully so as to avoid getting my hair tangled up. Then I would shake my head, allowing my hair to fall down around my shoulders. Then I would brush my hair over and over again and grasp it in preparation for placing the rubber band around the tightly compressed strands in my hand. The rubber band would be wound around my hair at least 2 times. This step was inevitably followed by a motion involving 2 hands placed on either side of the rubber band. The hair in the pony would be grasped just below the band and pulled outward, adding fullness to the ponytail and causing the rubber band to move closer to the scalp.
When I was a teenager, I went through a period where I wore a cowboy hat and sunglasses because I thought it looked cool. One day, a pretty young girl walked up to me and complimented me on the way I looked. She said, "What do you look like underneath that hat and sunglasses?" I took them off, and she paused for a second, and then said, "Oh." I never wore that hat again.
Sometimes my older sisters treated me like a toy that was to be played with. They would dress me up and take me out into the neighborhood, showing their friends my cute little dresses, my shoes, and my curly hair. Yes, I had curly hair when I was little. People said I looked like a brunette version of Shirley Temple.
Sometimes I cry at movies. Don't tell anyone.
Every time I had a crush on a boy, I kept my feelings to myself. My girlfriends talked endlessly about the boys they liked, but I was too insecure to confess my feelings to anyone. I feared that sharing my secret would result in humiliation. I feared that my friends would tell the boy I liked about my attraction and that he would laugh at me. This would be the worst possible thing in the world.
My wife is always asking me, "What are you thinking?" How am I supposed to answer that? It's all going by so fast.
My dad often told me that I was the sweetest little girl in the world. This statement confused me a lot. I was sure that my dad would not lie, but I found it hard to believe that I really was the sweetest little girl in the world.
I grew up surrounded by strong women. My mother, of course, had to be strong, by virtue of having raised 4 sons in her newly adopted country, America. My grandmother, on my father's side, had raised her family almost single-handedly, having been widowed at a young age, and made stronger by the horrors of being in Eastern Europe during the Second World War. My grandmother, on my mother's side, was similarly tested, and as a result was made stronger and more independent because of it. And my aunt, whom we visited regularly as children, was tough as nails, having survived 3 husbands and doing things most of her life her way. It never occurred to me, growing up, that women would be anything but strong, and that's why I married a strong woman myself.